Okay, so in this video we are going to call a function by reference. What does it mean? So let's say we are having a function func and we are using a list for it. So I'm going to give it the name list func, right? And inside this I'm going to write some list one. So this is just a variable right now. So list one is just a name. I have not created the list. And now let's say I'm going to assign this variable, means now I'm going to call it as a list. So let's say I write here at particular index number 0, the value is 40. Okay, so now I just have defined the function, and let's say I just want to print this also. So let's say I'm going to print the list one. Okay, so this is how I have defined it. Now I'm going to call it. So before calling it, I'm going to define it outside. Means inside this function, the list one is a different thing, and the scope of this particular list is up to here, right? But this particular list which I'm going to define here is different. Let's say I'm going to give it the name list 2, and this list 2 is having a different collection of values. Let's say list 2 is equal to, let's say it's having some values 20, 30, 40 and 50. So these are enough. Okay, so now I'm going to call this function. Just wait. Okay, so now I'm going to call this function, right? So now the name of the function is list func. So list func is cool, and inside this I'm not going to pass value as a parameter, which I have done before. Now I'm going to pass the variable name, or you can say the name of the list. So means I'm giving the reference here. Means what happens in the Python, these are the values, these are stored somewhere inside the memory, and this is the tag, or you can the reference, which is pointing to this particular memory location. So now if I'm writing list 2 here, means I'm going to give a reference as a argument, right? So after this I'm going to print this list 2. Okay, so what has happened here, list 1 is here at a particular index number 0, the value is 40, and list 2 is containing these values, and I just passed this as a reference here. So when I passed it here as a reference, means this particular memory location is referenced by this list also, right? So this memory location is having two tags, list 1 and list 2. Now when I called it, and now what I'm saying is list 1 at index number 0, the value is 40, but for this list the index 0 is containing the value 20. So what will happen, because both the list 1 and list 2 is referring to the same memory location, so for this, for the index number 0, the value will be replaced, right? And when I'm going to print this, the new value will be reflected. Let's run this first. Okay, so what has happened, I just replaced the index number 0 to the 40, and now I printed this list 1. So for this particular function I just define only one value, but as I have passed list 2 as a reference, so this list 1 is also referring to this particular location, so all the values are passed here. But for only the index number 0, the value is changed. So when I'm printing the list 1, it is going to print all the values, including the modified value. And when I'm printing this list 2, for list 2 the value was 20, but as I passed it here, and for the index value I access this particular index and change the value, so the value is also reflected here, right? So by passing the value as a reference, you can change the value in any list or tuple by accessing the index number. Well, let's change the scenario here. Let me delete this one. So let's I'm having a list num, and inside this I'm going to again pass the value list 1, and now I'm not going to access any particular index. Sorry, yeah, now I'm not going to access any particular index, I'm just directly defining the list 1. Okay, so list 1 is having value 10, 20, 30 and 40. These are enough. Okay, so I will give the print command also. List 1 is printed. Now I'm going to call it. So before calling it, I'm going to define one more list. List 2 is equal to. Now I'm giving different values here, like 30, 60, 90 and 120. Okay, so these are the value here. Just wait. Yeah. Okay, so these are the values for the list 2 and these are the values for the list 1. Now I'm going to call the function list underscore num, and inside this I'm going to pass this list 2 as a reference, right? So what has happened, this particular list is referred by list 2, and when I called it as a function, so list 1 is here, so means this particular memory is also referred to this particular value. But what happened when I go into the definition, what happened, list 1 is assigned a new list. What happens here, this particular list 1, for the list 2 the link will be broken. What I mean is, first this particular memory location was you can say pointed by, or you can say there are two tags created, list 1 and list 2 for this particular memory location. But when I change the whole list or created a new list by using this particular tag, the link is broken with the previous tag, or you can say the previous memory location. So now list 1 is not pointing to this particular memory location because the link is broken, and a new link is created, and list 1 is not pointing to this memory location, it is pointing to this memory location. In the previous example, we just accessed a particular index and just made the changes, but now we are not accessing any index number, we are just creating a new list, which means the list 1 is going to point to a different memory location here. So list 1, when I'm going to print the list 1, this particular list will be printed, and when I'm going to print, let me give the print command here also, print list 2, then this particular list will be printed. So let's run this. Okay, so you can see for the list 1 the values 10, 20, 30, 40 are printed, and for list 2 these values are printed, right? So you can see the difference.